You don't have any projects yet. Why not create something new? Why not? Let's do it. So first off, you can go to New and pick out something from a template, or you can open a pre-existing picture. This is a picture of me. Sorry, I'm going to do some basic editing to it. So first off, you got your picture and you got your mouse tool. Here's some basic tools up here, and here's your bread and butter tools. When you move anything around with the mouse, you're moving the layer, but you're not moving the canvas around. So if you hit Control Z, you can undo that move. But if you have the hand selected, you're moving the whole canvas around. The notable difference between moving the whole canvas and moving just the picture is when you move just the picture, you can see there is a checkerboard pattern. That means that that will be see-through if you save it in a format that allows see-throughness. You can see these purple pink lines that pop up. That's the snapping points. That's right here. This just helps you recenter and line things back up without having things 1 pixel off, because that's the worst. So this is your crop tool, and you can do a 1:1 crop, 3:2 crop, 4:3 crop, and 16:9 crop. I really like how it's got 2 video ratios right there. That's very handy. I'll just show you a custom one real quick. With the arrow key selected, you can just drag it and make it any size, hit enter, boom. Whoa, sorry, I'm so sorry. Okay, ogres have layers and Vegas Image has layers. So first off, we have 1 layer, and it's just the image 1. This right here, this content, you can make it the little drop down arrow there. That just shows you what you're working with. You're working with this picture. It's a JPEG. It's 3840 by 2160, and it looks like that. So that's our content. I'm going to minimize that for now. And then here you got your layer properties. I'll show you more about this in a second. Once we got some layers, we can mess with the properties and show you what's going on. Here's your effects. Your effects are anything you can do to it. So let's say you want to add a texture enhancer. Eesh. Wow, now I look really grisly. There's all sorts of things you can do. So your basic editing effects are things like levels. And with levels, you know, this is your standard. My levels look really bad on this picture, but usually you have a little bit more bumps in the middle, and then you would kind of choke off the brights until you kind of hit that point where you start the image at the beginning of where your levels end out there. And you can even crush your black some too if you want. This one's already pretty dark, but let's do it just a little bit. Alright, so there we go. So that is some basic editing you can do, and you can add as many effects as you want. For example, let's add some skin retouch. And so you can have multiple effects at a time. You can scroll and look at all your effects. You can collapse your effects if you need to collapse them. This isn't the only way to add effects, but this is the most easy, basic way. So when you click on the color picker, you can pick it manually, or you can get this little color picker thing right here. Zoom in. Let's find a part of my skin. And I like how it zooms in right there, because it shows you, like, are you going to get that one odd pixel, or are you really going to get something that's indicative of the rest of your skin? So I'm going to get something that is kind of right in the middle of my skin tones, and then I'm going to hit OK. Now I can do some corrections. So specifically, the issue with my skin, I think, is the temperature. So I'm going to, if you cool it off, look at that. It's as if my skin was shot in a colder light, or you can warm it up. Now I look very, very over healthy, I think. And so really, I think the original shot just needed to be a touch warmer. So I can add that warmth back right there. Boom, now I look a lot healthier. So that's an example of multiple effects. You can also add effects in layers. So here is your image in one layer, and you can toggle that whether you see it on or off right there. And we can add an adjustment layer and do the same thing. So the adjustment layer just affects everything underneath it. So with the adjustment layer, let's say we open up effects again. We hit this little plus to add more effects. Let's do Gaussian blur, and all right, so now I'm blurry. So now, if I put my image above the adjustment layer, I'm not blurry. But if I put it below the adjustment layer, I'm blurry. So let's go back to this one. you can reset anything by just hitting this little circular button there, and you reset. You can bypass something too. So if you want to see what it looks like without a certain effect, you can just hit this little button right here. So for all the different layers you can add, up here you can add more pictures. We're going to do that in a second. You can add text. You can add a solid layer. You can add more adjustment layers, and you can add group layers, and you can add stacked layers. Today we're just going to talk about a few of the basic layers, and let's add in some Bob Ross. So here's Bob Ross. Now he's on top of, let's get rid of that adjustment layer. I'm just going to delete it because I'm not using it. Here is Bob Ross, and you can see the blending modes up here. You can make it just see-through by changing the opacity. And the blending mode, normal, this is normal alpha channel blending mode. These are just your standard compositing modes here. So knockout would be like everywhere it is, just delete it all. Dissolve would give a different kind of, see a different kind of fade. You can do things like multiply mask is a fun one. So see, now his painting is my face, right? And all these have different math behind them and how they work. But you have access to all the major ones right there. And you can also change some things about your image here. You can scale it manually. You can scale it to fill the canvas. You can fit to canvas. You can do all sorts of cool things like that. And you can even swap the layers too. So the layer on top is the one you see. So now let's talk about mask. With masking is just the way that you cover things up. So when you add a mask, you just hit this little plus here, and you can add a brush mask, a gradient mask, an area mask, or a vector mask. Let's start with an area mask. So with an area mask, you can see I got an area created, and I can change the size and shape of that pretty easily. I can even change the corners of it really easily too. And you can change the gradient amount, so how much does it feather, and you can just simply move it really wherever you want. With this little panel you can do more specific adjustments, and you can even invert it to where the mask is a hole. I'm going to delete this mask for a second. I'm going to show you a couple other masks. So first you can hit plus and you can go to brush, and the brush mask is cool because you can just kind of create a mask wherever you draw. And with your scroll wheel you can make this brush smaller or bigger. And you're like, oh cool, I didn't know Vegas Image had a brush. I know it's a little opaque where they hide it, and it's because it's a non-destructive editing software. And let's do this. Let's do this. Let's invert it. Now you can see some of the powers. Maybe you can, I really should have just been erasing the background, right? So if you wanted a paintbrush with this, you could really just add a layer and call this, you could add a layer, this little thing right here, solid layers, and you can just change the color of the solid layer. Let's say I wanted a red brush. And I go to my mask and I go to brush mask, and look at that. Now I can just add back that layer as I want to. You know, you can invert it and get rid of the layers you want to, but look at that. You got a brush now. Small, big. So that's one of the biggest differences about Vegas Image, is the fact that the brushing is a little more opaque in how it works. And I mean opaque, and it works differently than a lot of the other image editors, and that's because of the way it works is a non-destructive workflow. You're never going to actually destroy your base image. So if I change the opacity to half, I can now see both images at once. I actually want to put Bob Ross on top though, so I'm going to make Bob Ross a little less opaque. And then I want to go to this image right here, and I want to move it to right there. Bob Ross is going to be painting me. And the next step is to go back to Bob Ross, fill that up, and then we're going to go to the canvas too, and I'm going to set its dimensions to match image 2 and apply. Go to image 1 here. You can actually make it smaller by just grabbing the corner here, ducking it down. It automatically stays. Unlike all the other stupid ones, it automatically stays in the right scale. So Boom. There I am. And I'm going to go back to Bob Ross and add the opacity back. And then I'm going to add a mask. I'm going to add an area mask. I'm going to invert the area mask. And all right. And let's add another mask, a brush mask. And let's get his brush back, shall we? Let's do some finishing touches. Let's say I don't like something on my face. I can just select my picture again. I can add the healing brush. And first off, I got to pick a place that I want to match. So it'll tell you how it works when you do it wrong, but you'll have to hit Alt and then pick a place that you feel like is a good part of your skin, and then pick a place you want to match, and you can scale the brush to match the size there. Boom. I just got rid of like a chickenpox scar. Oop, I'm gonna make that a little smaller there. So that part I actually need to get a new place. Hit Alt again. I'm gonna get one of the shinier places on my forehead, and then there we go. I want to point out real quick that there are tons and tons and tons of effects that you can use in Vegas Image. So just because I'm only highlighting a few, that's not all you can do. So we're just about done here. A couple things I want to do is I actually want to correct the Bob Ross picture a little bit. So it's a low resolution picture. It's also taken on an older, less sharpened camera. So we're going to select this image and go to Effects, and we're going to add a little bit of clarity back into it. So just kind of pull some of that clarity right like that. And then we're going to add a little, can't remember what it's called. We're also going to grab the texture enhancer, and you can see it's already doing a great job. So that's it without it, but that's Bob Ross's face with it. It certainly brings back a lot of the charm in the original image here. So there we go. Now Bob Ross is painting me. Actually, let's do one more thing. I'm just loving this. So let's go to Effects, and let's add an effects level here. So let's add an adjustment layer, and then right here at this adjustment layer, let's add an effect, and this effect is let's do a directional blur, and we're going to do that a little bit here, but then we're going to add a mask to this, an area mask. Let's see, now we're only going to put the directional blur kind of right here where his brush is. Just to give that subtle, he's painting me look. So there we go. Maybe he's slowly turning me into a beautiful reflection. So that is Vegas Image. It is powerful, it's fun, it's super easy to use, and at first, really, my workflow was either dealing with the crappy free image editors, or it was using Photoshop. And one of the two, and finally I feel like there's something I have that's as powerful, does everything I need it to do, has a great rendering engine behind it, and I'm just excited to use it. The biggest problem with me with Vegas Image was I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how to use it. It took a while to learn, but now I've been doing more and more and more with it, and I'm really loving it. So we need to add a finishing touch here. So let's add some text here. Let's add a text layer, and we're going to pick something brushy, and we're going to call it Me and Bob Chillin'. And there it is. It popped up there. So I'm going to decide where this is going to go. I'm going to grab my mouse tool, and I'm going to move this Alright, so we want to do a couple of things to this image here. We want to rotate it. So let's grab this little top piece and rotate it. And so to make changes to the text and the contents of the text, you actually need to go down here to the text content. Remember the content drop down? Highlight that, and then you can do anything. This is your text editor, and this is what's happening over here. So you're not editing the text on here, you're editing the text over here. And let's go with something smaller. Let's go with like 32, and then let's move that right there. I like that. Let's rotate it just a little bit more. And let's add an outline to it. So let's see. If we go to outline effect, it'll outline everything in the frame. We want the outline to color to be, let's go with that nice little tree green. These happy little tree green there. There we go. Maybe not. Let's see. It also makes the words look kind of sick. What if I went with the mountain blue? There we go. Whoa, see, you can change the thickness of it too. Let's see what it looks like without. Yeah, it definitely adds a bit more presence to the font there. So now I've got some text on the screen and it's centered on the canvas. So the next thing we need to do, let's go back to me and let's add an effect. Let's add a subtle Gaussian blur to me, just like so subtle. Small radius. That way I'm not sticking out like a sore thumb. So obviously this is a much higher resolution image than this one is. So when I blur it just a little bit, it kind of makes it blend into the canvas and the paint and the rest of the picture a little bit. It softens it some, keeps it from just kind of jarring out. Alright, so we have one more thing to do. Let's add another picture. Let's get an image from my folder here. Let's add a Vegas image. And let's resize this thing. Let's grab the corner here. Very, very big image of Vegas image. But we're going to get that smaller. There we go. Now I've got my YouTube thumbnail. So let's export this. So if we go to project, we can actually save this as, I'm going to save this as tutorial Bob and save it. And then you can change 8-bit or 16-bit color depth. I'm gonna go with 8-bit because I don't have this is not a high color range photo here, but the fact that you can do 16-bit is pretty awesome. And in whether or not to include transparency, we are going to do that, and we're going to hit save. So now this project is saved. These images haven't been altered. All the source images are still the source images, but we just created a project compositing these source images. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hit project, and we're going to go to export. And when you export, you can export as a JPEG, you can export as a TIFF, you can export as a PNG, an EXR, HDR, and you can change things like the quality, whether it's for web, the matte color for it. You know, TIFF and PNGs can both save transparencies. We're going to do TIFF, an 8-bit TIFF, and we're not going to add any special color profile on it, but you can add the Adobe RGB profile to it if you want. And I'm going to hit apply. And that way, if you're working with your Adobe friends, you know what to do. So I'm going to, boom, I've exported that as a TIFF. And you can hit Control S to save again if you want to. Ooh, I've noticed an error. Let's go back here, go back to the brush mask. Add a little bit. All right, now it's fixed. All right, and then we're going to export this for my YouTube thumbnail. So to do that, I'm just going to go to export, and I'm going to go to JPEG. So the TIFF is the high resolution version. The JPEG is going to be the low resolution version. So I'm going to let it destroy the image. I'm going to say 70% here and apply. And what we're looking for is an image that's going to be the size of, so here we go. Let's take a look, right click, properties. This photo is 190 kilobytes. This should make a good YouTube thumbnail. So highly compressed. And that's what I'm talking about is compression engine. So so many editors out there when they're like, oh, it can do this, it can do this, it can do this, but can it do it well? I just made an itty bitty JPEG, a very tiny JPEG out of these images, and it looks great. Let's compare it to the TIFF size. This is like a archiving size. See, this is over 2 megabytes, and this is significantly smaller at 190 kilobytes. So, and they're both going to look just about the same, because when you compress something once versus when you compress something multiple times, even though there's a little bit of JPEG artifacting right here in the black, that is more to do with the low resolution image. Ooh, let's fix that. Let's fix that. Well, first off, we can add an effect. So we're on Bob Ross's layer here. We're going to go to effects, and we're going to go to levels, and we're going to crush the blacks on Bob Ross's photo here. And then we're going to go to denoise, and we're going to add a bit of denoising. Alright, so let's save this again. Let's re-export. So that's Vegas Image in a nutshell. That's the beginnings of importing things, layering things, compositing things, different effects that you can use and things like that. So don't be afraid to jump in and try it if you've got the Vegas Post Suite. Vegas Image only comes with the Vegas Post Suite. If you want to buy the Vegas Post Suite, you really should buy it through my affiliates link, because that would help out this channel a ton and help me make more tutorials for you. This is the first tutorial in a series of tutorials I'll be doing about Vegas Image. Like if this video has helped you out, subscribe if you're looking for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.